Thank you. I was just about to say, Joe, could we start recording? Well, we'll call the meeting to order here, and we can start off. So let's say welcome everybody for the 22nd of January for the Astro Cafe, and we'll start off. Chris, if you perhaps could let us know what information you have about the Space Telescope, and we'll proceed from there.
Oh, so you want me to start off right now?
Yes, you're on the spot.
Okay. Well, today I wandered over to my friendly neighborhood bookstore, which is Tanner's Books, and came home with this. So and it's actually a very good article about what Hubble is up to. Yeah, you know, I've talked about some of the issues, and but it actually talks about a lot of the science that Hubble is doing, and it is sounding kind of an optimistic note about the future of Hubble. So anyway, I recommend that. I think we still have a subscription, so it turns up in the library, but keep an eye out for it. And then just another thing here. These are today the United States Postal Service issued, it's actually 2 stamps with images from JWST. You might notice we're getting very used to complaining about the cost of our stamps, but take a look at the price tag on these, which of course reminds one of the cost of building the James Webb Space Telescope. But anyway, these stamps are for their, you know, their special express services. Anyway, and they actually last year did put out a stamp with JWST on it, but it was whatever their first class rate is, which is like 85 cents or something, less than Canada's, I might note. But anyway, that's basically what I had to say. Just a second, I'll get where did Zoom go? Okay. There we go.
Thank you, Chris. I saw those images posted earlier online, but I hadn't realized they had just been released today. It's lovely to see.
Yeah, actually, the very first stamp of that nature came out about 40 years ago, and it had an eagle on it, and they flew thousands of those stamps on board the space shuttle, and then sold them to collectors. So of course, I have them, and I was very interested in it, and I was working at the media at the time, and I discovered that the eagle on the envelope was actually from Canada, from British Columbia. So that was one of my big scoops when I was a reporter.
Very good. David, you said you had some information about the upcoming events for the SIGs and a few other things.
I do, but just to follow on Chris, I'm going to share with you a Christmas present of mine. So just let you see this. So for Christmas, I actually received this book, Inside the Star Factory. So this guy is, well, I'm just trying to think about a best way to describe it. It's definitely a coffee table book. It's kind of large format, lots of pictures. By the time you look through the book, you'll see nothing but kind of gold colors, and and the hexagonal shapes. So you'll see a lot of that. But I found it was a fairly good good summary. It's a nice. It's not overly expensive. It's under 100. I think it's in the 60-70 range, I think. But yeah, they were very nice. Lots of people in suits, like you see here. Okay, so let's have a look. I talked a little bit about this last week. I won't do any more on this, except I might contact Mark Simpson, who's the person who actually developed this product. Oh, I noticed. Lauri, did you have a question?
It's for Chris. I will ask later on.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking about maybe asking Mark Simpson, who's the developer of this product, for sort of capturing occultations. I might do it inside of a SIG. It depends on how much common interest there is in this. It's more of a maker's kind of information, but so we may just leave it for the SIGs themselves. So for this Thursday, Jim will be sort of hosting the makers group, and myself and Zen, I don't know if Zen's on tonight. We've been experimenting with kind of do-it-yourself solutions for imaging computing platforms, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the recent revisions of the Raspberry Pi type solutions. The main one has always been, well, Astroberry kind of predates ASI Air, but they're based on the same roots. But ASI Air became extremely popular. I think many of us in the Astro Imaging group use it, but it is unfortunately or fortunately kind of a proprietary product or proprietary implementation. So what's kind of been shaking the news lately is the Stellarmate Pro offering, and it uses the same platform, but it's based on Indy, and the Indy platform actually supports all sorts of kinds of hardware, so it doesn't limit you to ZWO type cameras. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then of course there's been a bit of kind of shaking in the mini PC area as well. I was surprised to see some boards, which maybe take a little bit of work. You have to put it in a case, but they're basically single board mini computers. So yeah, so we'll do a little bit of a survey of that, and then Zen and I will talk about what happened when we built Astroberry. So that's the main thing. I don't know, Dave, do you want to just follow up with the a bit on the Astrophoto SIG on Wednesday?
Sure. So this Wednesday is the Astrophotos SIG, as they just said. Excuse me. There's going to be a short presentation on picking some of your camera settings when doing imaging, like gain and exposure time and some of the things like that, and how they're all related to one another. And we're going to get people to show off what images they've gotten over the past month, including yourself, David, if you're there, and Reg, who usually hold out on us. So I'm putting some pressure on you guys to show some of your images. And other than that, we'll be open for questions and freewheeling it as usual. I know there's one new person who's joined. So I encourage to bring your questions, or if you're just not sure how to get started in it, you'll be very much welcome in the group, and we'll help you along. So see you Wednesday night if you're interested.
If anybody needs an invitation to that, if you could contact David or David, and we can get you on that list and at least into the meeting.
There you go.
Did anyone else have anything they wanted to talk about or to bring up? Pictures to show off?
Lauri, do you want to do your question with Chris?
Sure. I was just going to say re-stamps that there is going to be a Canadian stamp put out for the eclipse. And I believe it's coming out in March. Am I right, Chris?
I heard March 14th.
Okay.
And I know the Canada Post is working with Randy Atwood on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one that we can kind of get behind and buy some and send along to any of your friends that you send letters to around. Just make sure that those are on there. That would be really nice to kind of play up that a little bit. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Lauri, I have a quick question for you. Eclipse glasses, are they going to be available through the center, or is there going to be another source for them?
Yes, no, we have we bought 1,000 glasses, and certainly used maybe half of them for the annular partial eclipse. So we have got a stash, and anybody that is going to be going away somewhere and would like a little pile, maybe, I don't know, you can kind of let me know how many you'd like. If you're going to go down with any friends or relatives or anything like that. We have got those. I mean, that's what we bought them for. I mean, obviously, if you'd like to have a little bit of a donation or something like that, to do for the cost, but it's not necessary because that was part of our budget that we put in, that we would pay for eclipse glasses, but donations are always nice. So contact me, I think, is the easiest way. Right now they're up at the center of the universe, and I would have to kind of package some of them up and make sure that people have got them. I know a couple of people have already asked me for a little pile, and I'm going to get those ready. But if anybody else is going away and would like to take some, please let me know.
Right. That would be great. David, you said you had some photos you would like to show.
Yes, I just had a couple of images, in case anyone is interested. Let me bring it up and I'll share my screen. Am I coming through?
Yes. Yes.
So this is a flying dragon nebula. It got a top pick award on Astrobin, and I kind of like it. It was an image of the edge of a molecular cloud in Cassiopeia. No, Cygnus. Sorry, in Cygnus. And so it was actually taken in the summertime, and it was data that I almost forgot that I had. And so I just processed it, and it's I called it a dragon for drama because it's very dramatic. You can see that the as winds of common pushed glowing hydrogen into these fronts, and these fronts have overlain each other. It kind of looks like a dragon that's about to sweep down and maybe cook some sheep up for its dinner or something like that. So, very dramatic. And the next image I would like to show is actually on its side is the Medusa by Caravaggio. Probably a lot of you have seen that before if you've toured I think it's in the Uffizi, but I'm not sure. But of course, Medusa, when you looked at her, this is just a painting, it's not actually her. so you won't turn to stone. But she was a monster that if you stared at her, you would turn to stone. And Perseus cut off her head, I think, by looking in a mirror, if I remember correctly. So I'm just giving you a fair warning, because I'm about to show you. I showed it at this angle because it's at the same angle as the Medusa Nebula. So, and because I'm on Zoom, I won't know if you turn to stone or not. So take a look at your own peril. I think you can actually kind of see Medusa in what is really a planetary nebula, which is a star, a sun-like star that's died and it's blown off a lot of its gases and now exists as a white dwarf, as one of these tiny stars in the middle of it. This is in Gemini, so it was actually a recent picture that was taken during a little spell we had about a week or so ago of clear nights before the snowstorms came in. But it's one of these planetary nebula that's either moving, well, it's moving with respect to the interstellar media, or the interstellar media is creating a wind, depending on which way you look at it. And that wind is coming from the right-hand side of this image, and there's a star that's kind of pushing the gases out. So on this side, the gases all get compressed and glow, and on the trailing side, so the winds are coming this way, it's kind of blowing off parts of the planetary nebula, and you can see traces of nebulosity back here. So it's quite an interesting image. Is there any questions about those? Just
They look fabulous.
winter fun.
Very nice.
Dave, is that a narrow band, or what are you using there?
Yes, that is, well, it's actually a combination of RGB and narrowband. So the actual nebulosity that you see is narrowband data. The stars, everything else you see, the stars, and there's actually quite a few galaxies in there, we got to go hunting for them, are actually RGB, and they're normalized to the spectra, so it's actually fairly true color.
So this was done with a mono sensor.
It was done with a mono camera, yes.
Okay.
So it's was in Gemini. Is it a fairly small angular diameter? Could a person visually see that with a scope?
I don't know if you could see it with a scope.
Actually, Dave, just which telescope did you use?
I used a 6-inch refractor on that.
Okay.
It did actually come through. The colors are red and sort of a bluish white color when you look at it in red, green, blue. But so it looks fairly similar to this. The colors are different, and you don't get the detail as you do with the narrowband.
So I'm assuming you didn't get that much time on it because you only had 1 or 2 nights?
Yeah, I shot it for 4 nights. One night was a complete write-off because of the high cloud. And then another night I had to abandon a lot of the images for the same reason. And there were 2 images that I took each night because the nights are so long.
Right.
Try and tag team 2 images. One that's coming up
fairly long exposures then.
Yeah, I think this had 13 hours of total exposure. And each frame, the narrowband frames would have been 450 seconds, which is 8 or 9 minutes.
So these are fairly narrow band. They're 3 nanometer.
No, they're six
Sixes?
and a
Okay.
half. Yeah. But it's a fun one.
I
Mhm,
think
very
we
nice.
can safely say that despite the fact that Reg wants to see this with his own eyes, it's so dim he won't turn to stone.
Well, it depends if you use a reflector or a refractor, because the mirror worked for Perseus.
Mhm.
Good point.
Would a diagonal fix the refractor then?
So,
Nice.
David, how do you guide your camera on that? Do you have an auto guider, or do you just have a really good polar alignment setup?
Yeah, in this particular case, it was a guide. There's a mirror. You know, the frame on the camera is rectangular. So there's a little space above the rectangle. And in there goes a little mirror that goes to a second little camera. And what that camera does is you calibrate it, then you put it on one of the stars in this image, or a few of the stars of this image, and the mount kind of tracks the stars as they go across the sky. And I think I'm off of share screen. But anyways, it makes the fine adjustments. It tells the mount to make fine adjustments to follow the star.
So
The
is the guider photons ahead of the filter or behind the filter?
Oh, before the filter.
Ah, so you're not paying a penalty for the narrowband then?
No, you could do it behind the filter, but it doesn't really matter what color it is. It just wants to know where the star is.
I'm thinking of just overall intensity. You might lose something if it's too narrow.
Yeah, well, especially if you've got a long scope that's zoomed in quite a ways.
Mhm,
You might be starved of actual stars that you can see
exactly.
behind the filter. But the other way to do it is to you know roughly the declination that an object is going to pass across the sky. And what you can do is by taking images at that roughly that declination, before you actually image, you actually train your mount to know how much to move in right ascension to keep that image in the same place. And that is the beauty of not having to use a guider at all.
Well, it's I'm still working at the barn door tracker with the camera mounted on it. So, this is remarkably high tech for me.
Well, it's basically the same principle, right?
And I understood about 1 every 7 words.
So did I.
Okay,
Oh, I
like that.
apologize.
I'm, yeah, it gets I mean, I really like the pictures. Thank you, David. It's wonderful. And I like when you talk about what's happening cosmologically, and then my eyes start to fade when people start to kind of talk in tech. So
Oh,
sorry.
it actually makes a lot more sense if you do it. Because then
Yeah,
you know.
you're not gonna get me that way. No.
Okay.
That sounds like you're a prime candidate for an astrophotography, SIG.
Oh dear. I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes there are some people probably on here like me who can't kind of keep up with what you guys are doing at all. So anyway, but they're beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate the pictures.
I have some people at work who keep trying to get me started on the Kerbal space program game, and I tell them that I don't have much of a life, but I want to keep what I have. So I'm still.
Well, you know, if you have the combination where you like astronomy and you like tinkering with things, And especially if you have a high frustration level, like you can tolerate a lot of frustration, it's a fantastic hobby.
The
'Cause you get to
latter,
change
latter
it.
is very important.
That's a pretty hard sell, Dave.
I think the word challenging comes to mind for people that like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would just like to throw in a little bit of background too on Medusa. The reason why she was considered a monster was that she was actually raped by one of the Greek heroes, and what we would know today as PTSD and whatnot, went off to hide in her cave, and gradually was considered a monster, and so that was the origin of that. So she wasn't really a monster. She was just sort of damaged and shunned by the heroes that came before Perseus. So she actually I think she deserves a little bit more sympathy than we would normally give something like that. She normally gets.
Well, my apologies, but at least she has a constellation named after her.
Yes, very
Yeah.
true.
Or an object named after her.
Okay. I have some pictures too over at the mode of showing pictures if anyone's interested.
Yes, please do, Brock.
I finally had a weekend where there was no hiking or biking or gardening to do, so managed to actually spend some time at the computer. Okay, I think, whoops, hold on. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
There we go. So as you probably know, that's the Christmas Tree Nebula. And I got that same clear period that Dave was talking about. I had some time on this target last year and barely any time, and it was such a noisy, blurry image that I really, really wanted to get back to it. And Dave had done such a great job. He sort of created a bit of a challenge for me to try to come close. So I put a few nights into it and got a much better result than last year. And you can see the fox fur sort of area, which didn't really show up in my old image very well. And the overall detail was much better this year.
Brock, are you using a refractor as well, or your C925?
This is the C9.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty
What is
tight.
the green halo around that bright star in the
That's just
right-hand side?
a halo from the optics. I think.
Oh, it is. So it's not. It's an
Yeah.
artifact. Okay.
I think it's an artifact. I debated ways of trying to get rid of it, but it's kind of hard to get.
Well, it's a reflection from that star, right?
Yeah, I
quite
don't.
quite common if you look at images around the Horsehead, for instance. Alnitak will blow
yeah.
everything up too. So
Alnitak's just notorious for,
Yeah.
even if it's not in the image, even if you're anywhere near it, it'll show up in the side of you're trying to get rid of its gradient. So
It's a candidate for careful framing.
yes, it is. Yeah, for sure. And then while this didn't actually get up high enough for me to start imaging. So I had a couple hours, the 2 nights I did this, I had a couple hours where I couldn't quite see it. And it's sort of at a last minute scramble thinking, well, what can I do before that thing becomes visible? I just pointed up at the, I think it's called the Network Nebula. It's part of the veil. Just got a tight view of it. I hadn't done that much with the bigger scope on the veil. So I just got probably 4 hours or so, put 2 hours each night, just zoomed in on this because it's interesting texture.
Lovely.
And
That's the Eastern Veil, isn't it?
yes. And then I also wanted another crack at the Crab Nebula. And I did it last year with narrowband, and I was wondering what would it be like. It was the moonless nights that we had there. So I had one more night I didn't have any moon, so I pointed up at the Crab Nebula, and it's actually not as good, I don't think, with full color. It just is too much sort of washed out in the middle.
Do
The
you know
texture
what?
was much better.
Do you know what the declination was, Brock?
No, it wasn't terribly high.
Got
but I don't remember.
not greater than 45 degrees
No,
altitude.
I don't think so.
Okay, so pretty low down.
But I could be wrong. Off the
Hmm.
top of my head, it might have been closer to 30, but it was still interesting to compare it to the previous one I did with the dual narrowband. You see different features for sure. But I have better star colors in this one. And that's all I got.
The Crab Nebula always astounds me. It's got more and more detail in it. It's something you can practically fall into looking at it in detail. Lovely to see. Ken, have you been doing any imaging at all lately?
No, I haven't had to scope out since well before Christmas. I've been downloading a bit of Hubble data and playing with that. If you'd like to see it, I guess, but
That would be very interesting, actually. That's always sounded like an interesting pursuit.
okay, see what I can find.
So for those of you without telescopes and stuff, that's certainly an option for people.
Yeah, it's very easy to do. Some night I could go over that with you. Take a few minutes to do it, but no, it's not on this computer. That's why I'm having a problem. Oh, I can switch computers and show it to you in a few minutes.
Well, not to worry. I know you do some imaging as well. So I thought,
Yeah, I was planning on not next week because I'll be at the cafe, but maybe the week after going over on and then I could show you how to download the data too.
Actually, that would be a nice session where you kind of introduce the concept, how to download, and then show some of the work that you've done.
Yeah, it's so simple, and like with Cyril and stuff like that, free software, and YouTube to learn how to use it. It's really not all that complicated. And it
what made you choose a Cyril rather than using your mainstay?
I don't use Cyril. I'm just saying for people that
oh yeah, they could. Yeah,
want
they
to try
could for
it
sure.
at home, right?
Yep.
I
think
think
I think the simplicity of Cyril would probably be the way where I should be.
Yeah, Brock's the Cyril advocate here, so I'm sure he could sort of chime in too.
I've used Cyril. I've installed Cyril on a Linux machine. Is there a version that will work on Windows?
It's Windows, Mac, or Linux. It's pretty cross-platform.
Oh yeah, it's one of the better ones being cross-platform.
I'm rapidly losing all my excuses for not doing more. Well, we don't have anything else formally planned. Is there anybody who is with us tonight has anything they would like to discuss or show? Any questions that anybody may have for any of the council members or?
Did anybody else have some interesting astronomy Christmas presents?
Margie, you're smiling. I see you.
No, I didn't. I had a nice book on birds and a very small flamingo.
Santa was kind enough to give me a hyperstar for my 8-inch.
Santa.
That's a good one.
Is that the Starizona one?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to get it working before I put the hyperstar on, get the guiding problem settled.
Looks like Susan has her hand up.
I do.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
Can you hear me all right?
yes, yes.
So on my telephone, Google has decided what my algorithm is to be. And it keeps sending me all kinds of wonderful stuff about astronomy to the point where I'm rather overwhelmed. And I wondered if somebody could tell me what are some good sites to look at, or magazines, or whatever. Because as I say, Google sends me about 20 things a day, and I don't know which ones are really good sources.
Yeah, and it varies. For me, it varies on the topic. Like if you're really interested in aurora and solar activity, spaceweather.com seems to be like the benchmark. There's a lot of magazine-based kind of sites. I mean,
That's what Google seems to be sending me.
yeah, probably product type placements and things.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen some really interesting things as I scan through it.
Just as a suggestion for a non-commercial website, Cloudy Nights is a very good site. They do equipment reviews and just essays that are contributed by the users. And it's non-commercial, so I think it's a little bit less biased than some of the other sites.
I would suggest you go to Victoria Center's website. I have a page of astronomy links there you could work through.
Oh,
There's
all right.
magazines, there's all kinds of, is broken down by subject. You could
Cool.
pick a few of the favorites to start with. They're on the top of the page, and there's lots more around there. And so that would be the RASC pitch I would give you. And the second RASC pitch I would give you, of course, is to read the journal, JRASC, which you get as a member. Okay, it's a PDF version. So if you log into rasc.ca, you have a membership set up on rasc.ca, and you can download every issue of the RASC journal, which is an excellent magazine, and it's published every second month.
Oh, all right. One of the things that I saw this week that I found really fascinating was apparently the James Webb has discovered, and I don't have the math right, but they've seen some forms of, I don't know if it was galaxies or what, but they're like only a few 100 million years after the Big Bang. And the one little image that, like a visual that they gave us was like, this object should not be there at that time. It's like looking at a 3-year-old who's 6 feet tall. And so that was one of the news items this week, was about maybe rewriting cosmology. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating. Did anybody else see that?
Yeah, I've heard about that before. The one I like is to keep up to date on stuff is Fraser Cain on YouTube. The Universe Tonight, I think, or Universe Today.
I better start writing these down.
Yeah, that's right. It is Universe Today.
Yeah. And he's sort of local. He's from Courtney, I think.
Yeah, come to think of it, Ken, now that you mention Universe Today, you can certainly look for podcasts. There's lots of podcasts, astronomy-based podcasts.
He's got a podcast too, doesn't he?
Yep.
But yeah, he's right up to date. He's got a big staff working on it and everything.
Personally,
gets a lot of interesting speakers in too.
Personally, I'm really glad that the JSWT isn't just saying, yeah, everything is as we expected it. How boring would that be?
It's better than to say, well, God, we don't have a clue now.
For eye candy, you should go to the astronomy picture of the day.
Of course.
Pod.
I don't know about that.
Well,
looks
last
like
time I looked, I was pleasantly surprised.
it looks like Lauri has her hand up as well.
Yes, Lauri, what can we do for you?
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about FDAO later, but I'm just thinking, Susan, we have some very basic astronomy books up at the center, and also if you do come to UVic, if you're up at
Right.
UVic for the next UVic, which is I believe February the 14th, we have a fabulous library run by Alex Schmidt, and
Yeah, well, I have borrowed a couple of the books.
sorry.
I have a couple of the books right here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, there's all kinds. I mean, you will never get through them in your lifetime, you know.
No.
But but there are some really good, really basic ones to start with, and I think that's probably what you need to do is just, you know, don't try to get anything that's too wild and out there.
Oh,
Just
believe me, I wouldn't.
no, but just some really basic things about what, you know, about stars and galaxies and things to kind of get you going. Yeah.
I kind of like, you were referencing the techie talk earlier, and I actually, yes, I was nodding off a little bit, but on the other hand, even though I'm not understanding it, I'm appreciating what you guys are doing and how complicated it is and how fascinating it is. So even with articles that I don't understand most of it, I still get affected by it.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that, Susan, because in a way, the thing for me is, well, I'm a bit of a gearhead, I know, and I do like the hardware, but I'll tell you that my main fascination with it is the new things it can show me, or things that I just chance on because I'm making so many mistakes. I mean, I actually love making mistakes because I really learn so much, and I think if you have that attitude, there's nothing. There's just a huge amount of stuff for you to put your hands on and think about. There's no shortage of that.
I think what attracts me to astronomy is the cosmological dimension more than the technical stuff. It's just incredibly awesome. Like I forget who I was asking last time about, they were showing a fragment of a nebula, and I had asked how big it was, and they said, you know, a certain number of light years, and I asked the computer, how many kilometers is that? And it was like over 1 trillion kilometers, just one tiny piece of a nebula. And it blows my mind. That's what I love about this.
Scale is a huge topic in astronomy, if you think about it. I mean, we kind of neglect it in a way because we look at things and we don't really think about how far away they are. But a lot of what we learn is maybe not that visible. So there's all sorts of things we have to do to make them visible. And the other thing is we learn so much from spectroscopy, for instance. It tells us things like that. The light that comes back from the objects tells us all sorts of things as well. So as you start to learn more about astronomy, you'll see all the techniques that we've used to sort of infer or to understand data about these objects that we can't go there. So there's no way to really literally measure these things. So there's other techniques that we have to use.
Yeah. Well, thank you all.
Susan,
I just wanted to clarify, there's no UVic meeting on February the 14th. The next UVic meeting will be on March the 13th, Wednesday, March the 13th, and the topic is precisely what you described. There's a fellow named Leo, a postdoc at UVic, wrote one of the first papers that analyzed the JWST images, the deep sky images. And he said in the early universe, there's way more galaxies than there should be there. They had no business being there. And he described, the title of his paper is called Panic, because it states the standard cosmological model. So breaking news on the 13th of March at UVic. We hope to see you all there.
I'm planning to come.
You have your hand up, Rich? Second. Could you put your hand up for me? They can't see me.
Well, Garry Sedun would like to ask a question.
Yes, proceed, please, Gary.
Okay, I have a friend of mine coming over with his young son who's very keen to get started in photography. We don't see Nathan these days. Is there a bunch of young people hanging out doing this stuff? Do you know? Does anybody know?
I think Nathan's photography is kind of event based, as far as I understand. I mean, but you know, by chance he'll go and do something, but usually it's been based on an event. I mean, I've seen him do all sorts of things with his telescope, though. Mainly afocal, like just putting it up against the eyepiece, which has become very popular.
Do any of you know where there's a club where young people can go and hang out together and try this stuff out?
RASC Victoria Center.
Yeah, you know, we try to do a little bit. I've been sort of prompted by Lauri to use some lower techniques, and certainly any chance I get, I show people up at the on the hill what they can actually do with an iPhone, which is actually pretty amazing. Actually, what it can do on its own. You can use some supports to help you get a steadier image, but in reality, the iPhone captures so many images, it does it very, very rapidly. So, and the focal length of the lens on the iPhone is quite short. So you can take, like, as long as you're not going like this with your phone, a tenth of a second is pretty fast. And it just accumulates those and just stacks the image and produces a result. You can definitely take pictures of constellations. And
how about this? How about a different idea? How about he joins this outfit and somebody takes him up there and teaches them how to do it with our stuff?
Yeah, certainly. That's a great thing too.
So that's a reasonable thing. Like,
but are you suggesting that we do this for youth members or just for everybody?
Yeah, like the way to get kids up there.
Okay.
You know, kids, like 20-year-olds.
How about older people?
Or older people too.
Oh, older kids.
Yes.
So
certainly we can do that.
Okay, fine.
There's no reason why we can't do that.
Lauri, are we still doing nighttime things at schools?
No, we haven't done anything for quite some time, because we're not going out to the schools as much. I mean, that's another whole thing that we can talk about, you know, trying to get back on track a little bit. Garry, I was just wondering where does this young man live?
He lives here in Victoria.
Does he go to one of the high schools or middle schools?
I don't know. He'd go to the one in Brentwood if he went to any of them. He might even be in university right now. I haven't met him yet.
Oh, okay. Because there are 2 or 3 of the high schools and at least one of the middle schools in town that have astronomy clubs that are attached to their schools.
Okay.
So Oak Bay and Vic High are 2, right?
Are 2. That's right. Yes.
Yep.
And where Nathan is at Mount Doug.
Oh, Mount Doug too.
Good.
So,
that's good to know. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other one is Monterey, is it Monterey Middle School?
Monterey Middle School, yes, yeah, and I believe global, the one in Gordon Head, the
Arbutus.
Arbutus Global School, I believe also has
Mhm.
something as well.
You know, the other thing is, Lauri, if you have contact with the schools, is maybe we should send out an open invitation for teachers to suggest an evening where we'll come out and help them out do that. Right? If they're happen to be interested, right?
I mean,
we can add it to just I know we typically will just go out and show people things in the telescopes, but maybe we can do an additional thing when we're out there. Maybe do some stuff with phones and stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
In March, I'm giving a talk to a local high school up here in Duncan.
Great.
And trying to think of a way to have that's during the day. I'm just going to try and get some kids interested in astronomy. But you know, the other thing I bandied around with the teacher there is how do I have a night? And it's so hard to arrange because
you never know.
The weather is so you just have to have the luck of the Irish if it happens to be in the winter time with the weather. And in the summertime, it doesn't get dark until so late. So it's a question I haven't really answered. And the observatory is too far away for these guys to go, really.
I just noticed that Malcolm put out a thing in the chat about asking about what kind of accessory would be useful for iPhone photography. And, you know, as I mentioned, capturing kind of astronomy images with an iPhone is relatively quick. The camera itself or the phone itself is actually taking probably no longer than a 10th or a 15th of a second exposure. So really, I mean, it will saturate at some point purely just from light pollution. And typically it would saturate around maybe about 20 seconds. So really the only thing I would recommend, given the fact that it's a very wide lens on an iPhone, just a support of any sort. There's all sorts of little tabletop kind of tripods that can be used with a holder that will actually clamp on to the phone. And then if you're using like a Dobsonian, there are actually platforms that actually hold the phone squarely on top of the eyepiece, and that works quite well as well.
Chris, you have your hand up. You had something.
Yeah, two things. Maybe I'll just finish off. I don't know if you can see that clearly. It fits on a tripod.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting.
And it expands and contracts here so it can hold a phone on a tripod. And then you can see what it's doing and it can take a photograph. I just wanted to comment, going back a little bit to the VCO and having youth there. The one issue is youth who are under 18.
Oh.
So the youth who are under 18 would need to have a family member who is also a member so that they can be supervised, because we can't take responsibility for people under 18. We're not a school or the Scouts or whatever. We'd have to do all sorts of procedures to take care of that. So I just want to throw that out there, because we have had a teenage member, an under 18 member, who wanted to come up and help. Wanted to join the VCO, but neither parent was a member. So unless somebody else wants to take on responsibility, and so that's only germane if Gary's person he knows about is under 18. But I just thought I'd throw that out there. We can't really take that responsibility.
So could I be the sponsor person?
I would say if the parents agree, yes.
Okay, great.
Along the lines of what David was saying, that I've got one of these NextYZ Celestron gizmos that it'll hold the this goes on the eyepiece and it holds the iPhone and you can adjust the position quite accurately. It works really well for taking pictures with just a regular telescope and an iPhone, or using your iPhone on a microscope or whatever. And I think it was $70 at Canadian Tire. So it's
pretty good. And
in fact, it's quite a good little gizmo.
Yeah, I was surprised you could actually take pictures of Jupiter and the moons with it, because I've done that before with the platform. And certainly for the moon, it's fabulous for the moon.
Yeah.
Sid Sadu gave me a small wooden platform with a piece of PVC piping on it that would fit over an eyepiece like that would allow you to put a camera flat on it. And I don't know if he made these himself or whether he had somebody made for them, but they were something that.
Sid's always fabricating things.
Yeah.
And I'm sure those of us with 3D printers probably could fabricate something pretty easily as well.
Well, this was just a simple plumbing fitting in a piece of plywood, so it's even simpler than the 3D fabricating.
Yeah,
so
Sid likes to use Sid likes to create simple things.
There are ways, Malcolm, that we can that you could put a fairly good phone camera on the telescope. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add to for the subject for the meeting, or totally different topic altogether is allowed to? Lauri.
Totally different topic.
All right.
This coming Saturday, we are having games night up at the center for our Saturday night star party for the Friends of the DAO, and we have got an NRC team, FDAO team, and an RASC team that are going to pit each other in a certain set of games that will be obviously just for fun, although as soon as you get astronomers together, everybody gets competitive. So I can imagine that something will happen there. But do come up again if you are helping. If you're helping us with some of the jobs, like welcoming people, or being on the door, or being in the gallery, or just helping outside. Reg, what's the weather going to be like on Saturday?
It's brilliant. It'd be beautiful.
I don't believe you. Try again. Anyway, if you're coming up, then you're very welcome to come up as an RASC volunteer. And if you have not already signed up to be an RASC volunteer up at the FDAO or up at the DAO, then just email me and I can get you kind of on the list. Otherwise, if you're coming up as a guest, then the tickets are now out. If you are an FDAO member, there's a special link in our newsletter for getting the tickets, and otherwise you go to YEPDESK, YEPDESK, and you can look for the tickets there. They're free. I mean, donations are always acceptable, but they're free. But you do have to sign up for them. Anyway, it should be fun. And we're only having the star parties once every month. And then back into the spring again, we will start to increase the numbers of them. And by the summer, we'll be every single Saturday night. So be looking forward to doing that. And I think I mentioned this before, is that this coming weekend, we are having a big strategic planning time for the Friends of the DAO. Really looking forward to doing planning for the next couple of years, maybe even a little bit later than that. We've got a lot of we're doing quite a lot of work with Destination Victoria and some of the tourism to get something going and to get some money to be put into the system a little bit. And we're looking forward to anything. So again, I would encourage you to, if you've got some good ideas, we just love to hear from you. if you just want to just drop us a line, that would be just great with any ideas that you'd like to see the FDAO doing. And I mean, and of course, we can do lots of things if we have volunteers and staff. So that's kind of the, we can say all kinds of things we want about what we'd like to do, but it requires volunteers and some staffing, and we need to be able to pay the staffing in order to be able to do that. So please join us in kind of looking forward to some of those strategic planning times. So the other thing is has anybody said anything about the council meeting or about what's happening on February the 12th? Reg, is there anything we want to say more about that before? Because we're not meeting.
Just a reminder that on February 12th is our AGM, and it's going to be a Zoom meeting. And a message will go out to everyone in Sky News, and we encourage you to attend. We need, I'm not exactly sure how many for a quorum, but it is a fairly large number, more than we have here tonight. And there will be basically an election, financial report, and awards will be announced. And 2 weeks thereafter, on February 26th, we'll have a wild party at the 4 Mile Inn pub. And we will be making arrangements. There's a social committee right now trying to streamline and ensure that everyone feels welcome when they come through the door, and there is this place for them to enjoy a lovely meal. So I'll leave it at that.
Lauri, what time was the games meeting starting on this Saturday?
Oh, it starts at the people are going to be invited up for 6:30. We're a little bit earlier than we are kind of during the summertime. So it'll be 6:30 to 10 is our timing. We'll be having a children's program early. And then as soon as that's all finished and the auditorium is emptied of children, or a lot of children, then we can set up for the games, for the Jeopardy and all that kind of thing that's happening. So yeah.
Very good.
What's the time of the AGM?
I believe it's 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, I think, yeah.
Oh.
And not where you are, right? We're not meeting at all in person.
Everybody will be
online.
on Zoom. Yeah.
Everybody will be on Zoom. And we had 45 or 50 people last year, I believe, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So everybody come on out to the Zoom call so that you're in on the AGM. Yeah. And then 2 weeks later, come and join us for dinner.
Chris Gainor, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we close? Or?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
The only thing I could say is that if we want to get a crowd out for the AGM, we should say it's about dogs or pickleball.
So those are the hot topics.
Bicycle games.
Is your source Google?
No, it just seems that every time anybody talks about dog park regulations or putting in a new pickleball court,
well, the letters page of the Times columnist is full of letters about these, and when they have public hearings about it, there's dogs versus pickleball thing going up here in North Sandwich, and it was almost as bad as some of the events taking place on the other side of the world. To hear the way people talk anyway.
The other topic is trail bollards. Bollards.
Oh,
bollards.
Yeah, a smaller bike.
Yeah, if you hit those, it can do a lot of damage. So they need to do something.
Yeah,
They don't
Brock
put
is
them on
smiling.
roads. The ones on roads are plastic, which you push over if you hit. The ones on the Goose Trail are steel.
All these first world problems, eh?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, nobody can figure out when they can turn left or right, you know, with the bike lanes on either the left or the right. That's the other issue.
It's difficult for that because it means that you actually have to look at what the signals are saying. That seems to be difficult for some parts of the driving population.
Yes, it's.
Jim, before we go, I think we should have a moment of silence for the Peregrine Lunar Lander mission. I don't know if you know of that, but it was launched on the 8th of January, but it had a leak right off the get-go, and it did not have enough propellant to complete its mission, and it recently crashed. But there was a humorous story on the As It Happened show where they interviewed somebody, and apparently the ashes of Arthur C. Clarke and a bunch of other prominent scientists were on this craft, and it was supposed to land on the moon, and there was some specter that it might go into an orbit and in perpetuity just circle the moon forever. But the other thing that was a much more successful mission was the Sniper, the slim Japanese lunar module that landed, I think, on was it Thursday or Friday morning, and it landed successfully. It did a kind of a precision landing, but apparently there was a problem with its solar panels, and it's not enough power to keep the mission going as long as they hope.
There's an update.
Yeah, just thanks for reminding me. Yes. Now, the latest I heard, which was this morning, was this morning our time anyway, was that they actually shut off the slim spacecraft while it still had some power in its batteries. And they're actually there's a theory that the sun is kind of in the wrong part of the sky, and they're going to wait till it gets to another part of the sky and then switch it on and see if that powers up the solar panels. So at least at that time, there was still some hope that they might get it going.
Well, that's great news.
Yeah, there's another bit to that story. The solar panels were supposed to be pointing straight up, and they're actually pointing west. So it sounds like it might have fallen over or something. So that plays into that whole thing too.
Yeah,
I didn't get the name on it, but I do recall there was some talk about one of the landers had landed either upside down or not in the right orientation. So maybe
that's the one.
That's the one. Yeah.
Well, the good news is the Ingenuity helicopter went silent 2 days ago on Mars, and they just reestablished contact with that again. So this is good.
Well, that was understood that they were going to be, not in constant communication with that, as I understand it, just because of the fact that it was flying around in the different areas of the terrain that might get blocked off. So I didn't think that was too unusual to hear.
Yeah. There's another aspect to the Japanese lander. It fell over when it landed, but it landed very accurately, which is a good thing, because they're actually testing totally new technologies for landing very precisely. And if you can do that within, I think, 100 meters or something instead of a couple kilometers, you can design the lander to be very specific for the spot you're landing, as opposed to making it very generic. And that's a much better thing for coming up for the guys coming up right now.
Well, we're coming up about an hour and a quarter here, so unless anybody else has something they'd like to add or something they'd like to discuss, we should see about